Welcome to Capital Bank. We are a true community bank with about $440 million in total assets, operating 8 locations throughout the greater Houston area. We're very proud of our long Texas heritage and are committed to serving our customers while at the same time embracing regulation that keeps our industry safe. We enjoy an excellent relationship and have common goals with our primary regulators, the Texas Department of Banking and the FDIC. That said, at Capital Bank, we have the philosophy to comply and absorb regulation as effectively and as efficiently as possible rather than being consumed by it.
The Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act might have some benefit to the bank, but because of our current size and where most of the changes in this act are situated, I doubt seriously that it's going to impact us greatly. The biggest changes involve increasing asset thresholds from like 50 billion up to 250 billion. We are a $500 million bank that's already underneath the 3 billion, $10 billion thresholds that existed before this act came along. The one area where I think there might be some relief has to do with the community bank leverage ratio. It's my understanding that the actual percentage hasn't been set yet, but that it's going to be between 8 and 10%. That could be a problem for us because our leverage ratio right now is just a shade over 9%. And we have a history of something less than 9%. In fact, a year and a half ago, for 12 consecutive months, we were below 9%. While we're still well capitalized, because of our high loan to deposit ratios, the risk-based ratios are probably more favorable to us than what the leverage ratio is. We've got a 4.25, 420 conservation buffer on the risk-based side, which I think gives us a little more room to leverage up the capital than at 9.25 leverage ratio. We're probably going to stick with the risk-based simply because I think we've got the ability to grow unhindered a little better.
There are difficulties in finding compliance personnel. I don't think it's just because more banks are hiring these type of individuals. I think it's also because less individuals go into this area as their area of expertise. I'm not sure if that's because it's not focused on in college. Maybe there's less graduates coming out that are focused on this, or if it's not something that's widely known about. But we see less and less people coming out of college wanting to be in compliance. So you have to go after people from other banks that are already working in the area to get compliance people. So the candidate pool has just gotten smaller and smaller over the years, and we have more and more banks fighting for those folks. Our new hires are expected to do compliance-related work. It's part of everyone's job at Capital Bank, whether you're a teller, personal banker, executive vice president, or the compliance officer. We all have to be focused on compliance. It's part of the overall picture here at Capital Bank. Whether your training is developed by your position here, so every month you have a different focus, and we do online training based on that. When we have examiners in, we want to make sure that our employees are knowledgeable enough to interact with them, because believe it or not, they'll walk through the bank and interact with different employees. You may be a teller, personal banker, or branch manager, but they'll interact with everyone. And we want them to be knowledgeable enough to say, I know the answer, or to recognize that they don't know the answer, but they let them know that they can find out and go to the right person.
would say the most burdensome piece of regulatory compliance would be the Bank Secrecy Act. Bank Secrecy Act was implemented in 1970 and has continued to grow. In 2001, we added the U.S. Patriot Act. Along with the U.S. Patriot Act came the Customer Identification Program, which requires banks to fully identify those individuals who are banking with them and document that identification and specify specific pieces of identification that banks are to obtain. More recently, the beneficial ownership piece was implemented, which requires banks to fully identify every beneficial owner that's part of any commercial company. So, I don't see Bank Secrecy Act shrinking anytime soon. We will continue to do all the right things, all the things that we've always done to fully comply with everything required from Bank Secrecy.
I would say that it makes the community bank more competitive with the larger banks because it gives us a more level playing field. The deregulation, if you will, or the easing of regulations is overall a good thing for the industry as a whole, but more specifically for community banks because we don't have the economies of scale with personnel to be able to handle all the regulatory environments. So we have to budget those specific line items to handle that type of regulations. But I would say it makes the community bank more competitive. It puts us on a better playing field.
Regulatory relief, if stated in terms of the concept of right sizing that I'd like to see, would be to ease the burden on banks regarding the Bank Secrecy Act. There's a lot of work that has to be done day in and day out in order to track the transactions, report the transactions, identify the suspicious activity, file the SARs, all of that. I understand why we have to do it, but I think that the FBI, the federal law enforcement agencies, could come up possibly with a better way than relying on the banks to do it for them. Regulations as it relates to lending and interest rate risk management, they probably help sharpen our skill set, sharpen our ability to focus on how to make money, how to make it safely, and how to protect capital, how to generate a return for the shareholders. I don't think there's any of those concepts at all in any of the work that we do regarding BSA. There's no profit opportunity. It's all cost. And it's becoming more and more every year. They've added a fifth pillar, beneficial ownership. Requires a whole new set of questions and training and things that weren't in our system prior to the requirement for validating, verifying beneficial ownership. We're in the business to make money, and I don't know that we make too much money with BSA.